Hi, everybody. Welcome. Just letting everybody trickle in right now. And I'm also waiting for the LISPY team to jump on as well. Thank you guys for being here on time or early. And I hope that you guys are having a good Friday so far. Hey, Ali, welcome. We're just letting everybody in the room right now as people keep coming in.
Cool, awesome. Hey, Kara, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Elle and I are in the same room today, so we're gonna have to play with sound. Well, actually, why don't you say something real quick and see if they can. Oh, you're not on yet. You're not on.
Hi, Danny. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. Hello, thank you.
So again, like I said, guys, just letting everybody kind of jump in. We're 1 minute in, so letting people come in. We'll get Mel set up, and then we can kind of dive into what's happening.
Awesome. Hey, Danny, good to see you again.
Hey, it's good to see you too, Ali. Thank you.
Kara, Danny is the owner of Black Boys Home.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
I've heard so much about the incredible work you guys are doing. I'm excited to meet you.
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. All right, letting Mel in. Hi, Mel, welcome. Okay, I'm going to quickly screen share so we can jump in and kind of get this thing kicked off. Great. Okay, so you are in the right place if you're here today to talk about psychotherapeutic yoga. Psychotherapeutic yoga is the future of where yoga, therapy, and mental health all align. I'm Kara Duffy, and with me today, we have the co-owners of the LISPY School, Ali and Melanie, and I'll have them introduce themselves shortly. All of us have gone through this training. All of us know how this is so powerful for what the world needs right now, for the future of where yoga is going, for anybody with the yoga business, anybody in therapy, counseling, social work, essentially anybody who's here to change the world and do so through impacting mental health and what people are up to in their lives. So without further ado, I'm going to stop screen sharing and I will let Mel and Ali introduce themselves. Melanie, you want to go first?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Heidi, Tracy, Danny. I don't see everybody's name, but Carla. It's nice to meet you all. So I'm Melanie Wells. I'm a licensed professional counselor and a licensed marriage and family therapist. And I've been doing this work for 25 years. And I founded the LISPY School in 2015 in order to bring yoga into the mental health space, to bring the science of the neuroscience of yoga into the mental health space. And now we're realizing we need to take this neuroscience of yoga into the yoga space as well, because we live in a traumatized world, and literally informed yoga is the most accessible mental health care there is anywhere. All you need is a place to sit in your own breath. And so our mission is to introduce people to the science and steep people in the learning and educate people in what we do and get this out there and heal the universe. That's our goal. So that's me. Ali, you want to go?
We'll switch over to the sound. Cool. Yeah, hi everybody. It's lovely to see people here. I'm so excited to talk a little bit more about LISPY. Kara, thank you for introducing us. Yeah, so my name is Ali Haji. I'm a licensed clinician in Dallas as well, one of the co-owners of the LISPY School. And I actually came to LISPY after going through the program. I worked with Mel, as a clinician at her other company, a clinical practice. And then I heard about LISPY and went through it. And it was truly like midway through the program, I was like, okay, this is something very, very special. Yoga and meditation and mindfulness practice has changed my life from a whole past career into where I am now. So I knew the transformative effects of what it can do for yourself. If you can just tap into your nervous system, what your brain is doing, speaking to your feelings, understanding how your feelings work. And the only issue that I had with it was that I didn't have a language to really communicate all of this with people who weren't necessarily in that space, right? There wasn't anything I was seeing that was like this nice blend of neuroscience and the ancient traditions that we need to respect and honor. And then I go through this program and that's exactly what it is. So then I started to like knock on Mel's door, like, I wanna work with you guys. I wanna work with you guys. So one thing led to another, and here we are trying to get more people in this. So we're so excited that everybody's here, and whatever we can do to answer any questions about this program and curriculum, we're down to do it. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Ellie. Thank you, Mel. So everyone who's here, I would love if you want to tell us verbally, if you want to put it in the chat. I'd love to know if you're a yogi, a yoga teacher, if you're a therapist or counselor. What do you do that brought you to this work? I'd love to know kind of who we have on this call today. And of course, the topic of this call is the future of yoga therapy and mental health. And while the LISPY School offers, psychotherapeutic yoga teacher training, it's more than just that. And the reason that this event is called The Future is because we really believe that what can be offered through the LISPY School is not just amazing skills and practices for yourself and for your clients and whoever might be in your yoga room or your therapy room, but it's really giving people who are therapists, are yoga teachers, are studio owners, access to a niche market that is definitely where both of these practices are going. So not only can this work give you practices that can enhance your life and the lives of others, it's giving you a business model that will allow you to be unique and different and help people in a brand new way. We don't see an opportunity where yoga and therapy can't somehow start following this LISPY model as it goes forward. So we're really inviting people who are in these spaces to come on board and be part of where this is going, this new innovation, and get in while you can, because it will definitely give you a competitive advantage and a niche to help more people in a deeper level. So I see some people in here. Yoga and meditation instructors, trained mental health counseling and Pilates teacher, yoga teacher who used to work in mental health. So you guys are all in the right place. Welcome. So, Melanie, do you want to speak a bit about why that part of helping people in these spaces build their business and beyond their practice matters so much to you?
Sure. Okay, we good? Ollie and I are in the same room, so somebody has to run sound, and we need a sound man, really. So for me, my whole career has been built around bringing affordable mental health care and support to everyone. That's my entire business model has been built on that for the last 20 years, and LISPY is included in that. And one of the reasons that that's hard in the yoga space and in the mental health space is because, one, the training is not necessarily a very high level in terms of like what happens after you get out of school and how do you learn to actually do this, right? At least in the mental health field. And then for psychotherapeutic yoga, it's a new field, and so we're literally the only training that there is out there that has the same information that we have. So we have this unique opportunity and we can give people the information, but then what happens with it? And so for me, being able to scale success involves being able to share what we know with more people. And in order to do that, we have to be successful at what we're doing. And so if we know how to run our businesses, and if we know how to run our nonprofits, and if we know how to be successful in our professional world and like make the machine work, then we can help more people. It's like a stone in a pond. So for me, those things go together, which is why LISPY involves a business component, which is that's what Kara's jam is. She's a business coach and an executive coach. So our success is will scale and give us a much wider reach so that we can help more people. And then there's also just a karma thing. Like, I want the money in the hands of the people who are good people. I don't want it in the hands of the other people. So I want us all to be really successful because I know we'll do good things with our success. I think that's really important.
And of course, like yoga already gives access to so much mental health and mindfulness. And part of the reason why I didn't take a yoga teacher training until I found YogaZama was because I was worried being the very like practical, optimize oriented, logical person, that they might have all been a little fluffy, which, you know, I was like, oh, I really want to know deeper. I want to know more science. I want this to be the most professional experience I can get for a mind-body connection and what yoga really does. That's part of what I love about LISPY and YogaZama, is that it's the only yoga teacher training that has science behind it. Like the fact that there's an entire weekend of neurobiology, the fact there's an entire weekend of you know, the psychology elements and how this works in what's actually happening to your mental health in your brain while we're doing different poses and practices and breath work. That was really important for me because I wanted to know the why. And I think that this is the first offering that tells you the why. You know, Ali, you mentioned that your previous yoga experience and meditation mindfulness experience caused you to change careers and get to where you are today. How has taking YogaZama shifted how you think about yoga and mindfulness from what you thought before as like an outside consumer to what you know now taking this program and now being on the team?
That's a great question. Oh yeah, there we go. It's a great question. Thanks for asking. I mean, I think when I first started on my own personal yoga path, it was very much about kind of dealing with those feelings, right? And what I know is that it worked, but that's sort of all I knew, right? I did the stuff and I was like, okay, I'm starting to feel better. I'm starting to feel more in touch with myself. But then I didn't really know why. Like, I didn't know why this was allowing me to regulate myself better. Like, why focusing on my breath, right? Like, we breathe all the time. Like, now I'm paying attention to my breath and that helps me deal with the immense anxiety I have. Like, right? Those are the pieces that I just wasn't clear on. So it honestly, Kara, it goes back to this piece about language. For me, at least, like, my really big takeaway from LISPY was that now I can communicate to somebody, whether they are a physician, whether they are a yoga teacher, whether they are an elementary school student, right? We talk about special populations in this training as well. But through all of these weekend modules, it's all so integrated that you learn how to communicate with people in the way that works for them, right? There's kind of like a running theme, I think, in the program that's like you meet the client where they are. And that's kind of a pretty clinical perspective. Like as therapists, I think Heidi mentioned she was a therapist as well. You know, that's sort of something we take into the clinical room as well, but it's something we can do in the yoga studio, right? We teach future teachers, how to really work with the body in a way that's safe. So, you know, the other thing I learned, I think, from LISPY and going through a psychotherapeutic yoga training was that it's not all about perfecting my handstand, right? Like, sure, we can handstand, but now I know why being in the handstand is actually helpful, right? Now I understand why being in the headstand, what it's doing to my blood circulation, how that then affects the nervous system as a result. You know, kind of like Kara mentioned, we go through anatomy physiology, we go through the things that a traditional teacher training has, but YogaZama is the up-leveled version, right? So it takes that and then it says, oh, well, here's a neurobio weekend. Here's a weekend just specific to mental health and psychopathology, because if you have a client who comes in who is struggling with an eating disorder, if you're not a clinician, we don't teach diagnosis or anything like that by any means, because that's outside of the purview, but you need to be informed as to who the student is that's in front of you. And that's sort of what we're teaching through this whole process. So a very roundabout answer to your question, Kara, but that's kind of where it landed for me. Yeah.
Well, and I know, you know, I don't plan on being a yoga teacher, but I literally use what I learned through YogaZama with my clients every day, myself, my clients, my family. And what I love is that I have a clear formula for, hey, if someone's having anxiety, if somebody's having issues sleeping, if somebody's feeling just low and like overrun and worn out, I literally can take that and give somebody a formula that I know is going to produce results. I'm somebody who likes a 1, 2, 3 process. And the fact that YogaZama gives me that, where I can, as you said, meet them where they are. And literally, I feel like I have the keys to the code. Like, oh, you want to move from here to here? I can help you. You want to move from here to another play? I can help you. I also love that I know, not being somebody trained in as a therapist or really in any psychological space at all, I love that I am really clear on where the line is of when I call a phone a friend, when I call you or Melanie or somebody who is a trained therapist to say, hey, I have a client who they said insomnia, we tried a few things. I think it's deeper than that. You need to talk to somebody like you. Like, I now feel empowered of not being afraid of working with somebody who has probably needs to be diagnosed in an area, and knowing that I'm not afraid of those words or those terms. And I know I can have somebody like you to partner with. So I don't feel overwhelmed or like running away from it like I may have before. So I feel super empowered because of that. I'd love to, ask everyone who's here with us today, based on what we've said so far, like, what makes you excited about YogaZama? Is it having a formula? Is it having something to make your business more niched? Is it just having access and these tools? What do you guys all think? And of course, you can jump in. We'd love to hear your voice or see your face. But if that's too much, you can put it in the chat.
Hi, this is Tracy.
Hi, Tracy.
Hi, this is Tracy. Hi. I can't, unfortunately, I'm on my phone, and so I can't chat. I can't type anything in, but I just wanted to say it's really the science behind it and the mind-body connection, because I've done a lot with personal training and working out over the years, and then ergonomics and also neuroscience. I'm a biohacker. It's my passion. And then also technology and organizational health and wellness. So just combining all those things, and how yoga has thousands of years, and we don't know why. It's the why does it work. Just like I heard today with LISPY, I want to know why. I don't want to just do it and accept it. So I like that you have science behind it, and I think it'll appeal to so many more people and big organizations as well.
Yes, I think you said every key word that we hope our dream customer says, Heidi. You talked about hacking, you talked about mind-body connection, you talked about organizations, you talked about giving people access to this work that normally would be like, yoga's not for me, right? Like, there's so many people who we're seeing a shift happen right now with meditation, thanks to so many of the apps and the conversations happening, but really seeing that shift with yoga, and finally letting yoga be known with its real definition, not just poses in a hot, sweaty room, right? So really re-educating, I think, the population. So I love that. Thank you. And thank you for being here while you're in the middle of multitasking yourself. Danny, how about you? Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, I'm really excited about how it's going to impact who I'm serving, and who my organization is serving. I want the actual change. Like, that is literally why we exist, is so that I want to get behind trauma, and I want to get behind anxiety. I want to get behind depression and stress and all of these things that are affecting the populations that in our communities that we're serving. And so that's it. Like, I want to change lives, and yeah, I'm excited about that.
And for everyone who's here today, what populations do you serve?
Yes. Oh, my apologies. Yes. So I have a nonprofit called Black Boys Home, and we exist to serve the well-being of Black boys and Black men through mindfulness, meditation, and yoga, and by extension, the Black family and Black communities as a whole.
And how amazing would it be to spread this through that community, right?
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you. Who else would love to share? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ali. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it was just something I was thinking about just from Danny speaking, is when I also think about LISPY as far as how it really helped reframe things for me. I think about when I used to go to yoga classes, and the teacher always would say, you take your yoga off the mat, right? Take your yoga off the mat, take your yoga into your life. And I was kind of like, I don't know what that means, because you are teaching me the yoga, and I come to this studio in order to do the yoga on the mat, right? And this training, I think, really teaches you how to take it off the mat, because we're really driving home that asana is one of 8 limbs of this whole situation, right? Breath work is a whole other situation, right? Pranayama, a whole other limb, right? Like, we teach you, like, even if you don't want to do asana, these are all the different pieces of yoga, union, yoking, right? That you can bring into your day-to-day life. So I just wanted to mention that as well, because I thought that was a funny thing. Teachers are always like, take your yoga off the mat, take it off the mat. And I think LISPY helps do that. So I just wanted to plug that in there. Seems like we have some new people too.
We do, yes. So for everyone who's new, I've been asking the group Based on what you've heard so far about what YogaZama is, LISPY, the future of yoga, blending yoga therapy and mental health into one space. What are you excited about? Who do you want to serve? And yeah, what possibilities do you see because of this conversation? And anyone can jump in.
Can I address something real quick, Kara? While you guys are thinking about whether or not you want to speak out loud to a group of strangers. Fair enough. So for me, and I think I can speak for everybody on the call, we're living in a traumatized world right now. We've had literally a worldwide common trauma that we've all experienced and we've all gone through. And it has changed us, and it has, in some ways opened up some new things, like yoga is on Zoom now. So that's a great thing. So we can take YogaZama everywhere. So that's a good thing, but it's also, I know I can speak for myself, altered my nervous system in a way that I have to manage myself differently, because I've been experiencing trauma for a year and a half, right? And it affects the way your brain and your nervous system work. So the common trauma that we've had in the world, in addition to our community traumas and our individual traumas, and just the way we're wired, you mentioned anxiety. Ollie and I are in the same room. Mentioned anxiety, and I'm like such an anxious person too, and I always have way too much on my plate, and I don't sleep and all those things, but really intelligent yoga that has the science behind it can address all of those things. So for me, the urgency of and the need for YogaZama has become very, very clear in the last couple of years, which is something I'm excited about. That's a problem I'm excited about solving. And I want to just be clear, the LISPY School is the organization, and YogaZama is the name of the training. So when we say, we're using those a little bit interchangeably, but YogaZama is a 200-hour dual certification teacher training that the LISPY School offers. So I hope that's helpful.
And when you graduate from YogaZama, you get a PYT or a PYC certification. So Psychotherapeutic Yoga Teacher or Psychotherapeutic Yoga Clinician. And the differentiation is for people who have education and degrees in therapy. You can correct me, Mel, the correct terminology, or people who do not. So like I'm a PYT, Ollie gets to be a PYC. So same training, but we really talk about application through it as well, of how can trained therapists use it, how can or mental health practitioners use it, and how can everyone else use it. And I love the fact that I got a window into the psychotherapeutic side that I wouldn't have gotten elsewhere. Like we talked about the trauma, we talked about the different terms of diagnoses and what they mean. And I mean, I haven't had this type of information maybe since a college class that I tried to avoid a long time ago. But hearing it and not being afraid to talk about it in a clinical way, because it is a mixed group, was so powerful for me. Because again, I feel more informed about my own body and brain, and also how I can help people. I know, Mel, that you had a great experience when it first dawned on you to kind of blend these with a client. Do you want to explain a little bit about that experience so people can kind of see the practicality of this?
Sure. So I've been in practice, as I mentioned, for a long time, very long time. And this was maybe 10 or 12 years ago. And I had been working with this family who'd had a family trauma. The mother had died of ALS, and it had taken her, 2 or 3 years, and she died at home. And so her children, her husband were all traumatized through this long ordeal that they'd been through. And so I worked with the family for the problems that they were having at the time. The son had just taken a knife to school and gotten kicked out of school, and the oldest daughter had just gotten back from therapeutic boarding school, and because she was on drugs, and just the kind of the stuff that you would expect after going through something like that. And the middle kid, the daughter, was the one nobody worried about, which is always the kid that I worry about, right? Because nobody's paying attention to that kid. So I heard from that daughter, I think she was 13 when we started. When she turned 18, I think, she called me, and she had, not surprisingly, developed her own issues. She was cutting, and she had developed an eating disorder, and she had these really severe mental health challenges happening. So I work with a collaborative team. That's not my specialty, but we worked on all those things, and we really got her to a place that she was you know, healing from those things. But she's an artist, and she was having these violent dreams, and she was making violent art, and it was a representation of her subconscious. And for some reason, I couldn't get to that part of her brain. And so I had just started yoga at the gym, and my whole yoga journey is like all about vanity, and then it became about sanity, and now it's about humanity, right? That's how I started out. So I asked my yoga teacher, I said, hey, can you come and work with this client? Because I can't figure out how to get to this part of her brain. So we literally moved the coffee table out of the way in my office, and he came and worked with her a few times. And then she went off to art school, and I never saw her again, which is my goal for a client. Like, she was healed. So he was able to get, just through breath work and yoga and meditation and the tools that we teach in YogaZama, he was able to get her where she needed to go. So I'm like, holy cow, I'm going to build myself a yoga studio and hire myself some yogis, which is what I did. And then several years into it, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, we need a training, and we need to be able to put the science together behind this whole thing and teach people how to do this. Even our own clinicians needed that information. So that's the history behind it. And now it's like, it's a bell you can't unring. Once you know about this, you can't not care about it, right? So it's become a clinical tool that I can't do without.
And a lot of people who come to the LISPY School and they look at the YogaZama training, I would say 50-50 have had some sort of yoga teacher training before. And so a lot of people ask us, hey, if I already have my 200 hours, should I get my YogaZama certification? We always say yes, because it is a different certification, right? It is the PYT or the PYC certification. And while there are elements of yoga that overlap and cross over, because it is Yoga Alliance certified, there are requirements to keep the uniformity of what yoga training is. It's different in every weekend because of having the psychotherapeutic yoga layered into it. Mel likes to say it's seeped, right, in psychotherapeutic tea. And it's true, because every weekend that we meet, we're talking about the whole version of this. So even in looking at anatomy and physiology, we're still looking at it from the point of what do we need to know to apply the psychotherapeutic yoga elements. So just to give you guys a breakdown of what YogaZama is and what it looks like practically, it is a virtual yoga teacher training to get your psychotherapeutic yoga certifications. It runs 9 weekends. There is a break in between, of course, for 4th of July, because we're just about to kick off our June program. So it meets on weekends, it's virtual. It's the only yoga class that what was attractive to me, it's the only yoga class I've ever been able to take as a teacher training that has flexibility, that has replays, that has the ability from anywhere in the world to take it together. The class that I took in the fall, we had students from across the US and in Europe. And it was incredible to see the mix of people coming in, the different backgrounds and the different applications of where they wanted to take this. There was such diversity and fruitfulness in the conversation as well because of that. We had an incredible conversation, I believe during the meditation and mindfulness weekend, on the impact of sounds and where is there prejudice in sounds, which I've never even thought about before. Right. And so there was such interesting conversations. We joke that this is like nerd yoga because most people who are attracted to this, like, they want to know the why. They want to know all sides of it. Love reading, like, tell me more. Like, we're hungry to know what this is so we can take it and run with it in the world. So from a practicality standpoint, there's lots of flexibility. There's the ability to do the replays. You're getting great conversations. What am I missing that you guys want to add, Ali or Melanie?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think something to mention, and this is not to scare anybody away, but just to say that we take this very seriously, is that it's a challenging training, right? Like, it makes you work hard in the sense of there's a lot of integration pieces. So we're not just asking you to learn anatomy, physiology. It's like, how do we take that and then literally apply it to somebody right now? Like, what's your answer kind of thing, right? We have you go through case studies. We have you look at, we wouldn't necessarily call it a treatment plan if somebody's not a clinician, but how to actually form, in essence, a treatment for the client that's coming in, right? And through this, you really learn to see the entirety of the person that's there in front of you. So it's, You know, I would say it is a pretty challenging training. We're having people read research articles. You know, each weekend there's a research article that's specifically devoted to the science behind what we're teaching in that weekend. You know, something that you have almost like in your toolkit if a client asks you, hey, take a look at this research article, right? And this is something that's also part of our community. Like, so when you join the LISPY School, when you join YogaZama, you automatically join a community of people that have been through this training themselves and who are going through the training with you, right? So this is something that we are actively building, but think playlists, think practices, think you will have the resources that you need given the client that's in front of you. So we like to think of all these ways. You know, I want to actually take a second, Kara, if we have the time, to kind of go through the curriculum a little bit, just kind of go through. So to give you guys an idea of how this all looks, right? The first weekend that people come in, it's like a nighttime introduction to the course, right? And we have, you know, myself and Mel are actually there. Our lead teacher, Kim, is there as well. And we're teaching integration. We're teaching scope of work. Like, is this something, you know, what are your barriers when you need to refer out to somebody, right? Like, where do you stop and somebody else picks up? Where does that person stop and you pick up? This all happens in that first integration weekend. Throughout the entire curriculum, we focus on application, right? Like I've been saying, it's not just about learning the material. It's about once you graduate, do you know what to do with this material, right? So we set all that up in the beginning. We then go to anatomy and physiology, right? All the basics, the nuts and bolts of everything that you just need to know if you're working with somebody's body. We go into asana, right? Learn the poses, you learn the Sanskrit, you learn how to say all the things. And then we kind of dive in and we move into neurobio, right? Neurotransmitters, brain waves, electrical impulses. How is that sending signals through your body? How does the vagus nerve connect all of your organs to your brain so that there really is literally a mind-body connection? You learn all the basics behind it, and also like the advanced components of things like polyvagal theory, for example. And if it all sounds like Greek, it doesn't once you go through the program. But after that, we go through Vinyasa Krama, energetics. We look at Ayurveda. We look at mantra, meditation, mindfulness. Mental health, psychopathology, and then of course we also focus on the Yoga Sutras, right? The Yoga Sutras are kind of another thing that tie this entire curriculum together. I'm obsessed with the Yoga Sutras. So at the start of each weekend, I like to just sit there and force people to talk about philosophy, and nothing makes me happier than doing that. So, you know, and that for me and Mel as well is about, we're not taking something from ancient yogic tradition and making it what we want. We're saying, here's added information that helps us communicate this to new societies, to new cultures, to new people. But we honor and we respect yoga tradition, right? As an Indian person, I make sure that happens. But yeah, throughout the whole training, you know, it's steeped in the sutras as well. And then lastly, we have presentations, right? So this all kind of amounts to a final presentation weekend of presenting a case study, presenting a practice, really applying the things that you've learned throughout these past 9 weeks. So that's kind of a look at the curriculum itself. Yeah.
So I'd love to open it up to questions anybody has of either how this could help their specific business or practice or area of expertise, what the program's like. So what questions do you guys all have about, you know, YogaZama and how this can impact your life? We're going to talk just about you, not even your people yet.
I'll go. I would like to know the other times after June that this will be available for 2021. Thank you. Sorry.
Great question, Ali.
Yeah, absolutely, Danny. It's always kind of in the works, right? Right now, we kind of work in 2 different levels. We do corporate partnership type stuff. People can actually, if you have an organization and you want to buy out a training just for the organization, we're happy to do that. So those can be based on the schedule of the organization and our own. Otherwise, we usually wait probably about a month in between before we start the next one. So June, and then I believe the one after that is going to start, I think it's September. Yeah, I believe it's September. So 9 weeks, and then we take a few weeks off to just regroup. You know, we get a lot of feedback from students, right? If you're in the program, you will be reached out to about what did you like, what did you not like, what could be better. We make those changes, we tweak it where we need to, and then we start it again. We do the whole thing over. So I believe it's June, September, and that takes us into almost into 2022, which is wild that it's already. But yeah, so I think probably September is the one after this June training.
That's my goal, is to do September, like personally to do it myself. So thank you so much, guys. Thank you.
Absolutely. What other questions do we have, y'all?
Ali, would you also want to tell everybody about the June program, like what the dates are and just when they can get involved in that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first day of our next training is June 4th. So that weekend, that Friday evening, we have our introduction to everything. And then that weekend starts with the anatomy and physiology. So then if you go from there, it's every single weekend after that, except for the 4th of July weekend. So from now up until June 4th, even into the program by a few days, we allow people to sign up. We understand the time commitment involved in this. We understand the financial commitment involved in this. We are willing to work with people on, whatever is helpful. But yeah, June 4th, 5th weekend is going to be the first weekend of this training, and then 9 weeks out from there. So the last weekend is actually August 7th, 8th will be the last one. So from June 4th to August 7th, with the break for 4th of July in between.
And speaking to that flexibility, being someone who runs 3 businesses, when Mel asked me about taking this training, I was like, how am I going to make that happen? And I literally had to decide to jump in like 2 weeks before it started. And I came back to her with that. I'm like, I don't know how I can make this happen. And she's like, well, it's virtual and there's replays. If you have pre-scheduled things, talk to us about it. We'll make sure that you get through this program. And I'm so glad that I jumped in when I did, because I literally use it every day. We talk about the urgency of the mental health crisis and where people are at right now after, as Mel mentioned, this universal trauma that we've had. I want as many people as possible to have this training now. I wish I had it yesterday, right? Because there's such a need to have these skills to help the different people in our communities. And I would hate for people to have to wait until the next program to do that. So, how can we work with you on timing? How can we work with you to make sure that you get this, how it can apply to your world? Because we need people to have this training now. This is the only psychotherapeutic yoga teacher training in the world, the only one. So if you want these skills, like this is the place to get it.
I have a question. This
Yes.
is Ken.
Hi, Ken.
So I'm a graduate student at Naropa studying Gestalt psychotherapy and somatics and polyvagal theory and all this. And that cost me a lot of money. And this training is also a lot of money. Is there a way to do a payment plan of sorts?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you said you go to Naropa. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm getting my master's in Gestalt-based therapy. So yeah, we're doing I'm Hakome, so that's my thing. But I also am a Kundalini yoga teacher, so I blend the two naturally with the breath. But I don't have a certification to say that, and I need something like that, so I can be a yoga studio and a mental health clinic combined.
You know what?
But I don't have the money.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? We'll let me reach out to you. We'll get your email and we can reach out to you directly about a specific plan that works for you. I also want you to know this is so cool because one of our faculty actually graduated from Naropa as well and teaches as part of this training. So I almost want to put you in touch with her as well so that you can see how this works with what she's done. Her name is Alana McCraw, but she was a graduate of Naropa, I think, I'm not sure, maybe like years ago. Yeah, so we have actually some students who have come from there as well. But yeah, let me reach out to you directly and we can figure out some sort of I can list out the payment options for you. Does that work?
Okay, because that works. That way I can do it because I can manifest a payment plan rather than a big sum energetically at this point.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. We'll do. Thank you, Ken.
And for everyone, there are options when you register to pay in full or to do installments. That's already built into what's on the website. I put the link in the chat. So that's there already as an option. We also have, for anyone who signs up by Tuesday, we have a special code called Future, where you'll get another 20% off, both for installments or for pay in full. So use code Future and you get extra off as well. So somebody has asked, will the training prepare you to be a yoga therapist?
Here, I will take this one.
Okay.
So not a therapist, right? So because of Yoga Alliance requirements, because of the licensing board for counseling requirements, we're not training people to be therapists. You'd be training to be a psychotherapeutic yoga teacher, right? So the difference is kind of like the licensure. Do you want to pop? Yeah, go for it.
So there's a governing body for yoga therapy, and it's called IAYT, which is almost impossible to say and a really unfortunate acronym. But IAYT, I looked through all those programs to decide whether we wanted LISPY to become an IAYT accredited program or whether we wanted to go through Yoga Alliance. And IAYT focuses mostly on physical therapy. So yoga therapist training is almost entirely focused on physical, and they didn't really have a space at the time that we were doing this program for mental health. And so it was easier, and it was a better fit for us to be able to plug the mental health piece into a Yoga Alliance model so that we could get all the basics of yoga. And then like Kara said, like it's just crammed with neuroscience and neurobiology and application. So yoga therapist is a protected term by IAYT, and therapist or counselor is a protected term by the licensing boards that we are under. And so that's why we came up with the credential that we did, because it will definitely establish you as a psychotherapeutic yoga specialist, but it's not the same thing as a yoga therapist because the training is very different. I hope that was helpful.
Yeah. So yoga therapy is physical therapy, body, and psychotherapeutic yoga is what we're doing here, mind, body, mental health. Mm-hmm. And I'm biased, but I think it's cooler. That's just me. Yeah. Checking if there's any other questions in here. So yeah, what else do you guys want to know about this? How can we show, what else do you want to know about how this is going to be the future of where yoga goes, the future of where therapy goes? Because that's really what this conversation is about today as well. Like showing you guys that this is where things are going. This is what's coming up. Questions about that? Anything that you want to share as well? Ollie or Mel that I'm missing, feel free to, of course, jump in.
Yeah, I want to say something quickly. One thing that's happened in the last probably 10 years is we know more about the brain and neurobiology in the last 10 years than we knew in the 100 years before that. And so, and it's a snowball science. The science is coming out every day, and it's almost impossible to keep up with it. But when I started as a therapist 25 years ago, we didn't take neuroscience. We didn't take the science of trauma. There was no specific trauma treatment. EMDR was brand new. It was, and nobody believed in it. It was kind of hokey and weird. And so there was no science behind the work that we were doing. It was all talk, what we now call talk therapy. Like it's, we talk about talk therapy like it's not really complete. And the reason we do that is because it's not complete. And so watching a client's face light up when I say, hey, we need to get you on a nervous system management program. Let's talk about that. And then we can talk about your marriage. And they're like, what? Is that a thing? And I'm like, yes, it's totally a thing. So let's create a plan. And we do that. And I have that set of tools because I've been through this program, which I didn't go through the program, by the way, until I'd owned the business for about 5 years. So then I was like, oh my gosh, look how great this is. And I'm like, Kara, I use it every day. So the science is pretty recent, and that is why that's why it's really necessary, because we didn't realize this set of tools was there, that you're literally walking around with the tools that you need to manage your mental health. And I'll just do a little quick, do you want to do the hand thing and explain trauma just really quickly? Okay, he's going to put me on. It's not my area. Like, he's a trauma specialist, and he's making me do this, I think, as a test to see, like, if I really passed the program, but I did. Okay, so if you think about this as your brain, right? Then you've got your brain stem, and I have an actual, like, brain model here that we use in the program, but I'm gonna do it the old-fashioned way. So if you think this is your brain stem, and every creature that breathes has some kind of neurological system. So brainstem is very primitive. If your brainstem and the inner parts of your brain are working, even if you're in a coma, you can breathe, right? And your reflexes work, right? So, and then the deeper parts of your brain are the most primitive parts of your brain. So we call it lizard brain. So even an animal that doesn't have cognitive thought would have these parts of your brain called the amygdala and the hippocampus. And I'm not going to go into all that. So if you turn on a light in your kitchen, which this happened to me a couple of nights ago, and I'm embarrassed to admit it, but there was a roach in there. And that guy ran. And he did it because he's got this part of his brain and he knows fight or flight, run, run, run. And I won, by the way, I got the roach. But so this is the primitive part of your brain, and that's where trauma goes. And it goes there because it's a primitive part of your brain. So we've needed this, even a bug needs to know when it's in danger, right? And then there are the more complicated parts of your brain. I'm not going to go into all of this, but the frontal lobe is the one that we use a lot of the time. That's where our rational thought is and our decision-making processes and all of those kinds of things. And this part of your brain is actually not connected to this part of your brain. And so if you have a trauma and it's not dealt with, it's lodged, literally the neurobiology is lodged into this part of your brain, and you're going to respond to things that aren't dangerous as though they are, because your brain thinks you're in danger even though your mind knows you're not. Does that make sense? So we take all of that apart using a real model and a lot of information, and explain how all of that works, so that you and try to make it very application based, so that you can walk. We've all done this. You walked into a yoga space and there's 30 people in the room, and you can tell whether that room needs up regulation or down regulation, or whether they just need balance, right? And so what we're teaching you is up regulate, down regulate, or balance. Those are the three buckets that everything is going to fall into, and it's all based on this thing. So if you want to get out of this part and into this part where you can like make some sense of things, this is the set of tools you need. I hope that was helpful. Did I pass?
Yeah, you passed.
Okay.
Miss Wells, I have a question for you. Within these windows of tolerance, we also have like this like vagal nerve thing that happens outside of your brain. How is this training going to help sort of disenlarge that embodied trauma? Specifically, like for me, I'm struggling with like ancestral racialized trauma that lives in the body. And I've been doing humming, tapping, diaphragmatic breathing, all these things to loosen up my vagal nerve. And I've been working with my students with the same thing, drawing, sketching, but they still have this sort of like residual something in the energetic field is off. And my question is, how do you work with like groups of bodies? As one body gets clear, it sort of affects the group. And how can we work? How do you work with that type of group sort of psychotherapy in a sense?
Here, let's switch this out. So yeah, that's a really wonderful question, Ken. I'm happy you're asking this. You seem perfect for this training, by the way. But yeah, we can talk about collective trauma as, so for example, race in this country, right? The oppression that is put on people of color is a trauma that people of color live with, whether they want to or not. It's not necessarily an objective trauma of like, I got into a terrible car accident, that sort of situation, right? But the trauma lives individually in each and every person. And because of that, each and every person, based on their own specific life experiences, will respond in a certain way. Their window of tolerance is going to be based on them individually, right? In that sense, trauma is an individual thing and less so a collective thing. The experience is collective. So the way that this training helps, the way psychotherapeutic yoga helps is in steps, right? The first thing is self-awareness. We have to know what our own body does. I have to know beyond a rational understanding of what I do, that when I personally get triggered, I start to shake. I start to do these things. So if I can be aware of this mind-body connection, and that when that happens, my vagus nerve is communicating to the brain that I am in a threatening place, right? If I stay here with that breath and I show myself, okay, this is an uncomfortable sensation, not a bad sensation, it is uncomfortable, but let me grow comfortable with this discomfort and show myself how to expand this window of tolerance, right? And that, I think, is a very individual thing, right? Like when we think about yoga, a phrase I love to use is that the pose starts when you want to get out of it, right? I'm going to put you in that warrior two. I'm going to put you in that warrior two for a full 2 minutes, okay? And when your legs start to get on fire and your brain, your fight or flight starts to come in and it starts to say, this guy's a total idiot. I hate that I'm here. Like, let me get out of this. My legs are on fire. I'm going to say, this is your fight or flight. This probably happens to you a lot. You probably get angry when you get triggered, right? Focus on your physiological sensations. Call them out to me right now in the room. What are you feeling? Okay, tension, warmth. I feel sweat. Okay, now suddenly we've moved outside of identification with all those things and into our place of conscious awareness. And that ties into exactly what Mel was talking about, right? When this happens, when we're triggered, that prefrontal goes offline, we flip our lid, and that's it, right? And this is a whole Dan Siegel thing, right? So we flip our lid and we're just reacting at that point. So we're trying to reintegrate through this vagus nerve, through this polyvagal theory. Yeah. Does that help? It was a big question, but I hope I...
That really does help. The bottom up or approach really does work, and I love somatics. And it does answer the question of how the individual and the community are sort of apart but together, and that was the missing link. And as a Kundalini yoga teacher, we hold poses long, so I understand that metaphor.
You do. That is very true. This is why I don't take Kundalini classes.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about about special populations or who we want to help, right? And we know that some of you are here to work with kids. We know that some of you have come to this program because of working with veterans or, literally every group, right? So what I love about this is little techniques like the flip your lid. That's so easy to communicate to anyone for them to get it and to own it. And I love that literally that the work in YogaZama is simplified to a place where the practicality is so applicable, but it's not simplified in you feeling like an expert and knowledgeable in what these things are. Like they always say the best way you learn is being able to teach it yourself. And I'm over and over again impressed at how I can educate people on what this is. Not having all the training that Ali or Mel have in these spaces, but being able to at least talk about it and discuss it so other people can get it. And as somebody mentioned earlier, I believe it was Heidi, about how we need more people to get how this can help them. And that to me is also an amazing takeaway of YogaZama. So we have just about 8 minutes left on this call today. This is the last kind of chance. If you have a question or want to ask how this fits for you, I'd love to open it up. So the floor is whomever would like to ask any questions. I'm also just going to check back into the chat. Right, like Carla, you were asking about your my students, family, and friends, and mental health. Right, getting that beyond your community into the family community as well. This training is great for kids, right? So I'm already using it with my nephews. Right? How do we reduce timeouts? YogaZama.
Yeah. So something I want to also add on this note, it's actually a piece that I run into a lot in the therapy room, right? It's that people come in and you talk to them and you help them process and you explain things and you psychoeducate them and you teach them what needs to happen. And then people keep coming back because it's like these changes sort of aren't being made. And that's the conversation that I have with them. Are you doing the work, right? We're here and we're looking at all this stuff in the room, but when you leave this room, are you still doing the work? And so I think about the YogaZama training as it's teaching you how to do that work, right? It's literally saying, like, this is what you actually do. Like all of this kind of intellectual nonsense, all of this kind of aside, we'll give you a little bit of that to just like satisfy that part of you. But then we're going to say, do it, right? Because if you want to see the change, it's about taking these application pieces and bringing them into your own life.
I want to add on to that. So when you think about doing that, and we have to do that ourselves, and that's a requirement of the program, is that everybody has to have their own practice, of course, and we want you to be steeping yourself in this knowledge and practicing it. So I had a client, I do last ditch marriage counseling. Last ditch. By the time they get to me, they've mowed down 5 or 6 other therapists and they hate each other, and then my cases are terrible, right? But I've got this process that I use, and my success rate is really high, I think, because people are in so much pain, they're actually motivated to do the hard work. So I had one of my marriage clients in my office yesterday, and I was seeing him individually for part of this process that I do, and he started to freak out on this exercise that I literally have all of my clients do, that this literally never happens. And I felt myself thinking, I'm freaking out. Like, I started to freak out because he was freaking out, even though I know better as a therapist, but I had to notice, oh, I'm like, he's he's starting to fight with me about this. So I was able to calm myself down, recognize what was happening in my own nervous system, and then be not freaked out by what was happening and help calm him down as well. So there was a lot going on in that like 15-minute stretch of that hour and a half session where I had to get a grip on myself. And if I didn't have this set of tools, I don't think I would have known what was happening with me. I was being triggered by him, and he was being triggered by the things he was learning about himself. And so I wasn't addressing, I was able to be therapeutic. So he's fighting with me. I could fight with him about the content, or I can understand the process of what's happening, which is sort of meta. And so I was able to work with what's happening instead of getting into a back and forth with him about the information that he was upset about, right? And that is the tool set that you walk away with, is the objectivity to be able to go, oh, I know what's happening over there with this person. It doesn't have to freak me out. Let me help them, right? I've got this great tool set. I can help you. And I didn't mention the nervous system or any of the things. I just helped him with it. So.
And that's why this work applies to people like myself, who's a coach. It applies to people who work with athletes, like anyone who's in the space of how do we optimize humans. This is so applicable. Also on that note, you know, we have talked, you know, Mel and I before about how it breaks our heart that so many yogis and yoga studios are not sustaining what they could be from a business perspective. And that's why we also include a weekend on ethics, social populations, and business. We want you guys to not only have this magical Yoda set of skills that you get in YogaZama, we want you to have really practical business applications of how can I use this to earn a living, to be sustainable, to have the resources that you need so that you can keep sharing this and doing what you love. We want more people doing what they love, right? That's the part of the underlying message of this as well. And you will get skills about that: pricing, costing, marketing yourself. And then also rolls into the membership program that Ali mentioned earlier, the community that we have. We do not want to leave you guys alone. We want to support you all the way through, because this really is a wave change that LISPY is committed to for the world. So not only do we give you the skills to do this work, we're also going to give you the skills to turn it into something that can provide you a living so that you can focus your time and energy on this as well. And with that, I'm going to wrap it up for the day. Thank you guys so much for being here. You will get an email specifically from me so that you have the link and the coupon code, and you know how to get a hold of us if you want to for any further questions. But thank you so much for spending your day with us. And I can't wait to see you all in YogaZama.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. That was great.
You're welcome. Thank you.